Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of January 25th, 2023. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker?
Here.
Mr. Bruce?
Here.
Mr. Claybrook?
Here.
Ms. Savage Towns?
Present.
Chair Rainey?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. At this point, may I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So move.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us a report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedures for today's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have an announcement or a report this month, so I will go into the procedure. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found in the front right podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation that will contain site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the board will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide rebuttal. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chair. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from applicants since their names are already part of the public record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. Pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, the time allotted for speakers will be as follows. The applicant has 5 minutes to present his or her case. The applicant may reserve unused time for his or her rebuttal. Those speakers in support of the application have 5 minutes. This 5 minutes is the total time allotted for support testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. Those speaking in opposition of the application have 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is the total time allotted for opposition testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. The applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal in addition to any unused time for his or her presentation. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chair may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. If the applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to hear additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and or rebuttal. All motions made by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not to exceed 90 days with the consent of the applicant or 30 days without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st of 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing of the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the UDC.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish the consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to the case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should make their objection known by a show of hands when the secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established by the board will vote on all cases placed on the agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which of the items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent this month?
Item number 4, BOA 22-168, 4657 Quince Road as a 1-month hold. Item number 7, BOA 22-175, 319 Garland Street as approval with conditions. Item number 8, BOA 22-176, 581 South Belvedere Boulevard, approval with conditions. Item number 9, BOA 22-177, 1758 Meadow Bark Cove, approval with conditions. Item number 10, BOA 22-178, 456 and 460 Tillman, approval with conditions. And item number 11, BOA 22-179, 299 and 595 Chelsea Avenue, approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion at this time to approve the consent agenda, which consists of agenda item number 4 as a hold, and then agenda items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 approved as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Secretary, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Jones?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Raymond?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. So if you've come down for any of those cases, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11, you've been either approved or held as requested, and you are free to go. Mr. Secretary, will you call our first case we're going to hear today?
Item number 1, BOA 22-140, 4970 Summer Avenue.
Okay. Is the applicant present today?
Good afternoon.
Oh, you go ahead.
I'm here. I'm Greg Gallagher. I'm
That's right,
subbing
Greg.
for Mr. Thomas Hanson on this. The board may recall we had some testimony in the last setting, and
Correct.
we were going to look into some things that the board had recommended.
Yeah,
I'll let them make-
if that's and is there any opposition present today? Mr. Davis, do you want to add anything before hearing from the applicant, since I think we all remember this Lotus Restaurant case?
Sure, I can just make a few comments.
Yeah.
Number one, staff has not heard from the applicant since the last board meeting, so we did not get a site plan as requested by the board. I have added a photograph of the rear of the restaurant, which was not in the presentation last month. So here's a view from Old Summer and down Old Summer, just for your reference. And finally, I did add 2 conditions, number 4 and number 5 on the screen to reflect as best I could the board's discussion. Just to reiterate, we are still recommending rejection, but these 2 extra conditions now require that in addition to being at least 20 feet from any right-of-way, that the container buildings would have to be located between the rear of the building and Old Summer, and additionally that Old Summer have a Class 3 buffer installed along that whole frontage. These are the 3 acceptable Class 3 buffers, so evergreen trees and some sort of site-proof fence or wall. And just looking at this rear frontage, that may eliminate this access from Old Summer if that buffer were installed on the rear frontage. And that is everything I have to add, but I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff?
I have a question. I thought I saw, I'm looking on the report now, but I thought I saw a condition requiring upgrading Old Summer with sidewalk. Is that not on there?
That was a comment submitted by the city
Comment,
engineers.
but you didn't put it in the condition.
From
Okay. All right.
our perspective, these accessory structures are not significant enough to warrant
No.
that sort of upgrade.
It makes sense. I was just thinking, really? Sidewalks on
Yeah.
Summer? Okay,
We, as conditioned, we would require a buffer along that frontage.
that's perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? All right, Mr. Gallagher, you want to share some with us?
Thank you. My clients were coming. Unfortunately, as you may recall, the owner had a stroke, and so he has to rely upon transportation. So I think his son was a little late picking him up. But I have spoken to them. They are in agreement with the conditions that the city has proposed in the event that the board could see fit to grant this. You may recall that I'd indicated, and they swore to, that these containers were necessary for the continuation of this business. It's been there for 40 years. So they are willing to work with the city. In fact, they have, I didn't know that they hadn't gotten in touch with Mr. Davis. I know they're trying to come up with funds in order to be able to comply with all these conditions. But they have indicated to me that they would be in agreement and that they would do these things in order to ask this board to consider granting them this variance. So, and we rely upon what was presented at the last time that we were here too. So we'd respectfully request that the board grant the variance for these people.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Gallagher? Ms. Baker?
Well, I have another question for Mr. Davis. If we approve this, how long would it be before they would actually have to, move the thing and put in the screen, before the time would be up and the approval wouldn't be any good anymore?
Well,
How long would they have to do with this?
The building permits would need to be acquired within 2 years of the approval for the variance to remain valid, after which there is no expiration date. And these conditions would need to be met in order for the building permits to be received, which would need to be done before the court was satisfied with the situation.
So they have 2 years to do something, is that what you're saying?
Well, the court could potentially order the removal of the buildings if they were not legitimized before then, but the variance would expire 2 years from now if the building permits had not been received by that point. But it's really between the box and environmental court at that point.
Okay, and they'll be going back to environmental court and they can decide whether they want to, what they want to do. Okay.
I believe we appear back before the environmental court on February the 27th. So.
Okay. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, and again, I'm going to ask, is there any opposition here for this case? Seeing none, if we could get a motion to approve BOA 22-140 as conditioned by staff, so then we can then discuss.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Go ahead, please, please.
Well, I mean, I think we were really trying to work with the applicant early on. I do like staff, the recommendations for the buffers around them. I think that would help. I mean, because again, we're dealing with the establishment that's been there for some time, and and try to build on top of that existing building proved to be some hardship for the applicant, along with just kind of some of the property setup. But I'm inclined with the conditions to approve this.
Okay, Ms. Baker?
Well, that's pretty much what I was going to say, so.
Okay, duly noted. Any other comments before we vote? Mr. Secretary, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Oh, you said Claybrook.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes.
Switch it up a little bit. Mr. Bruce?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Brown?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Chair Ray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Good luck to your clients.
Thank you so much, and I know that they appreciate it, and they're highly motivated to get this in compliance.
Yeah.
And I will attempt to help them, and I want to thank Mr. Davis. So,
Okay.
if I may be excused.
Thank you much. All right, Mr. Secretary, we call our next case.
Item number 3, BOA 22-151, 1546 Robin Hood Lane.
Mr. Smith, is there any opposition here today? I think I got a card. Okay, if you'll just come down to the front row for me, y'all both can have a seat real quick. And then, Ms. Shelton, would you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, how are you all? Good evening. Teresa Shelton with the Division of Planning and Development. You have before you case BOA 22-151, 1546 Robin Hood Lane, represented by Mr. Delano Smith. They're asking, the request is to allow the encroachment into the rear, in the side yard setback for a storage shed. The applicant is seeking relief from subsection 3.6.1A to allow the encroachment into required side yard setback for the storage shed. The applicant is asking to encroach 5 feet, well, at least 2 feet, I'm sorry, into that 5 feet side yard setback. Okay, do want to note, and I'm going to go on past this so I can get to this. Okay, on 10/3/22, the applicant was issued a citation warning by construction enforcement for failure to obtain building permits on the structure in question. As you can see here, the fence, the structure you see here, and that's just a close-up of the fence that was not permitted. The structure here, which we think is an accessory dwelling unit, and it gives you a better look here. And all of these are unpermitted. The addition that was added to the back of the home, they were also cited for that as well. The storage shed, the newly built storage shed here, and as you can see, there's an additional one over to the side. And they're also encroaching into the rear setback, which I think is 15 feet for the rear for R6 zoning. Here's a survey site plan that was drawn up to show the setbacks. Let me see if I can make it. It's a little bit bigger where you guys can see it. Can you all see that?
Yes.
But it's also, in my staff report. And I do apologize for not having a presentation. Wasn't expecting it to be pulled. This may give you a better or clear vision of what it looks like. So currently you'll see the new storage shed here that's showing that it's encroaching here. I think it's 3.1 right here. This is the one that was already there. And it's 2.7 here. 6.7 there, and that's 15 feet, like I said, from the rear. This is the other building structure to the side that they're requesting the encroachment on, and it's 3, and it's supposed to be 5. So it shows it here. Right. So as I stated, the request is to get relief from the side yard setback for that, what they call as a storage shed. We're assuming it's an accessory dwelling unit. They're wanting to encroach 2 feet into the 5 feet side yard setback. These are the conditions, which is condition 1, which is our standard condition. All structures and additions must be brought up to the building code standards. The 2 storage sheds in the rear that I showed you earlier, we're asking them to move them from the rear line setback, rear yard setback, and must meet the requirements under the Unified Development Code, Section 2.7.2A1 and 2, 2.7.2B, 2, and 2.7.2C. So they need to meet all of those requirements per my conditions, and that is my report, and I'm here for any questions.
Yeah. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ms. Shelton, this storage shed it's over to the side of the building, isn't it?
This one or the other? This one?
The one that you're saying that we're to act on about the side yard setback.
Okay.
It's over to the side of the building, right?
Right, it's
The main
attached. Let me go to this picture. You can see it a little bit later. It's sitting here.
Okay, so my question is, isn't an accessory structure like that supposed to be in the rear yard? Or
It-
is this somehow considered, where does the rear yard start?
Well, it should be, but however, they were cited because they didn't get permitted. So all of these things, it's like 5 things that they got cited for, and that was one of them.
Why wouldn't have they had cited them? I guess I'm asking that it's not even in the rear yard, which is where it's supposed to be.
I can't answer that. That would be a question
Okay.
for construction enforcement as to why. When it was presented to, I think, Mr. Smith, they presented it as a storage shed.
Okay.
Other questions of staff from the board? Okay, thank you, Ms. Shelton. Mr. Smith, if you'll give your name and address for the record, and I'll swear you in, sir.
Delano Smith, 3831 Lakehurst Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 38128.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, the owner has requested for the variance for that shed to the right. We've hired a engineer, Bruff Stevens engineer. He came out to give an evaluation of each structure so that we could move them, the two rear structures, and they are in agreement to make that adjustment. But the right structure you see on the right side, we're asking for a variance for that. And that's mainly what we're here to do. We would have to, it's almost impossible to tear it down without, not impossible to tear it down, to move it without damaging it. So he's gonna make some drawings and some, to stabilize it and make sure it's up to code. And that's mainly what we're here for, to make sure we can be allowed to just bring that structure up to code and other addition to the rear of the building.
What's the plan? Are we using it for a shed, or is it for an accessory dwelling unit?
It's gonna be an accessory.
Okay. Oh, but an accessory dwelling unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, okay. And let me ask you this, it's tough for me to tell in the picture. That the roof of the carport goes over to it, are those structures connected to each other, or does it just do the roofs more just overlap each other?
You can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah,
They overlap, but if it's required to attach them, we will.
Okay.
They can, if it's not allowed to become a accessory dwelling unit, it can be made into a shed if possible.
okay.
But they prefer it to be an accessory dwelling unit.
But it has plumbing and everything like that already run to it? Maybe?
It doesn't, let's see, hold on a second. I think it does.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of the applicant?
Comment later.
Okay. All right, we'll reserve your time for rebuttal, unless there's someone else that wants to speak in favor of the application. Okay, I have is it Miss Myers? Yeah, if you would come up and give your name and address for the record,
Oh,
and if you'll stand right behind the microphone so we can hear you.
thank you. Good evening. I have been a resident on Robin Hood.
Real quick, give me your name and address for the record, yeah.
Ginger Myers, Ginger Disrow Myers, 1571 Robin Hood Lane.
Okay, and I'm gonna swear you in real quick. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. You can share with
Okay.
us now.
I've been a resident over there since 1991, and I have noticed a lot of, in the last maybe 3 years after the pandemic, they put houses, the regular houses, but look like things been added to it. I can't go on people's property and look. And I don't know if that could be a breakdown of dealing with the light company that is making sure everything is properly addressed through Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, because I'm a taxpayer, and I've been paying taxes since 1991 on that street. Now, I'm across the street from them, but I'm just trying to make sure that when something with sewage or lights or whatever it is, to make sure the code is up to date. And because we have children and grandchildren, and I'm just trying to make sure that if I'm paying what I'm supposed to pay for all those many years, I'm just trying to make sure the whole street is in order. It's about 5 houses. And I'm right across from Girls Incorporated, South Park, okay? So I'm just trying to make sure I'm here. They sent me a letter in the mail, and they asked me, what do I think of it? And I was just trying to say, I don't mind it being improved, but I want to make sure the code is
Right.
Up to date.
Okay,
And everybody's safe on this street.
okay.
And you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah, and part of this process, if this is approved, one of the requirements is they get all the proper permits they're supposed to. So I think what you're saying is if this does get approved, that has to happen.
Yes.
So-
And then I want to make sure it's residential, not for extra activities, a meetup place.
Like a
Because
business,
I'm
yeah.
a homeowner, me and my husband.
Yeah.
And we're raising kids, and we want to make sure that the music at a certain time be cut down. You understand? I go to Church of God in Christ. G. pastor in one of his churches. And we're just trying to make sure we're still living like we've been living.
Right.
And not altered for party functions or whatever's going on.
Sure.
We're just trying to make sure we're staying in a homely environment and raising our children and grandchildren.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, are there any questions of Ms. Myers? All right,
I have another question for
thank you,
staff.
Ms. Myers.
Is there-
Myers, I just want to make sure I understand you right. So you're okay with the structure, you just want to make sure that it's in compliance with the code. Am I right?
Scoot over to the microphone if you don't mind. Yeah, that's all right.
The code, and when people have function, I know people have birthday parties and whatever, but we're just trying to make sure the music is at a certain level, not like we at a nightclub on Beale Street. I'm just trying to make sure everything is properly and in order, decent and in order. That's what I appreciate from the city of Memphis, and I'm a taxpayer. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Ms. Myers, have you witnessed any parties or extracurricular activities in those extra
Well,
dwellings?
it's been some rather strange things when we have a house across the street from them, and nobody stays in the first 2 houses. They hadn't been in the houses for 3 years. But on the weekend, it turns into like a nightclub scene with music playing, cars coming and going, burning rubber. I try to be polite, not to call the police, but I want to know what is going on. Is this a residential area, or area for recreations, or area for, what is going on? That's all I want to know.
Is this at this particular
No,
house?
it's not this particular house, but the house directly across the street. I'm African-American Black. I'm not Hispanic, so people's coming and going. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. That's all.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure at this address.
Huh?
I was just clarifying.
But see, you don't know because I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know who they visiting. The cars be parked. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay,
Are there people are living in this property, right?
Somebody living in the
Okay.
house painted blue. Yeah,
Unlike
somebody
the other
living
house you're
there.
talking about? Okay,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
perfect, okay. Ms. Baker?
Well,
do you have a
my
for staff?
question, yes, was staff question. I'm looking at the staff report again, and it says storage shed. I don't see anything in here about it being an accessory dwelling unit. How did you review it? Did you review it as an accessory dwelling
Well,
unit or a storage shed?
Initially, when the application was filed, it was filed for a storage shed. However, when the code enforcement put a case against it, they had the citation, like I said, it was done back in October. CC sent me those pictures and along with the citation, Mr. Smith, one of them, somebody sent them to me, maybe Brett, because I think it was sent to Brett. Davidson accident, and it was forwarded to me. So I added that, and looking at the pictures, you can clearly see that it is not a storage shed. So I just left it the way the application was submitted, but I'll put in there that it's an accessory dwelling unit.
So you reviewed it as though it was an accessory dwelling unit. That's what,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And another question, is there a kitchen and a bathroom and everything in there?
Now
or
that
do
I
you
did
know?
not get from CC, because I don't know if she fully went through it or not. So I'm not sure, I can't answer that question. Mr. Smith may be able to, or the applicant, but I'm not sure.
Due to the language issues we're having, she says that there is no one living in it, it's only use of storage. That was probably my mistake, I'm sorry. We're going back to, it's just a storage unit.
Okay.
That's all it is.
So your request is for a storage shed,
Yes, ma'am, that's
not
all.
an accessory dwelling
Yes,
unit?
ma'am.
Okay.
Normally, her son interprets for me, but he had to go to Mexico because their mother passed away, so he's out. So he's been back and forth. But at this point, yeah, it's only a storage unit at this point.
And you're just requesting
Yes,
a
ma'am.
variance for the storage shed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions before we move back to rebuttal?
I just, have you been inside of the building?
No, sir, I didn't go inside. We just evaluated the structural stability of the building to make sure we could bring it back to code and/or make a decision if we could move it. And the engineer said, be best to just leave it where it is and try to bring it up to code.
And from the,
What you have to,
Would that bring down my property value on my home with a shed in front of the house? Or
I
how-
have no
how would that go?
idea.
that would be a
Yeah.
question we would be able to answer.
Yeah,
Because all the houses are coded for just, you can't go so many feet from the street house.
right, yeah, that's what the variance is for, but I have no idea on property value.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
okay.
All right, we'll move back to the applicant. So if you want to give any rebuttal, or
No,
there may not
at
be
this
any?
point.
Yeah, okay.
No, sir.
Okay, are there any questions before we move to discussing this case? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve BOA 2022-151 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I would like to see kind of what they're proposing, the engineer. I'm almost in the, just to kind of see how they're going to fix it.
You mean what they'll do to properly support it?
Right, right. Because I know they have to meet code requirement, I get that, but I'm not comfortable voting knowing that there's quite a bit of, and I don't know how much work has to go into it, but just kind of, I see the site plan, and I guess my question will become, is that the site plan that the engineer is going to, is that the plan that he's working from, or will there be some alterations to that? Being that now we have to get it code approved.
I would assume that if it's not an accessory dwelling unit and just a storage shed, that to me means no plumbing or anything like that. It's just the engineer going in and just checking the studs and making sure it's all right.
Okay.
And that's part of them getting their building permit. If they don't get the building permit, then all this stuff fails.
Okay.
So I think that they could come and tell us, but I don't know how much we would understand of it.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't mind, though, adding a friendly amendment that we talk about the structure, we maintain that this has to be a storage shed and not an accessory dwelling unit. So maybe just that, we just friendly add number 4, that the structure shall be only used as a storage shed.
Agreed.
Mr. Ragsdale, do we need to further define what all can happen in a storage shed, or is that defined by, I don't want plumbing, I don't want it to be a playroom.
Well, we just have accessory structures, and so one level of that is an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, which does have, actually a dwelling unit has a full kitchen, so if you want to try to limit it to, not having plumbing and, only having electrical or something like that, you could. So there's one other point I wanted to bring up, and once y'all finish that discussion.
Okay. I would be in favor of just saying to not have plumbing, and they can always come back if they want to do something different, but I don't want to really make the decision on a full ADU today based on that structure. If they're saying they're not going to use it that way, I'd rather not give that away.
So are we just labeling it accessory structure with no
Yes.
plumbing? Okay.
I think so. Any comments on that? Did you have another point you wanted to make, Mr. Ragsdale?
Yes, I did. So on condition number 3, we did require them to move the 2 storage sheds that are in the back to actually comply with the sections of the code. And we need to separate at the end of that subsection 2.7.2A1 and then comma subsection 2.7.2A2. And A2 states that no accessory structure shall be located closer than 5 feet to any other building or manufactured home on the same. So that's keeping the distance. So we would need that variance for the accessory structure that you're actually providing the variance for. So I just wanted to clarify that. So on the front, for the conditions, we would need to have that variance because of the proximity of that shed and the carport.
I didn't follow that one bit. I'll be honest with you.
1, 2 is 1 and 2.
I get the 1 and 2. Are you saying that's all I need to change? That's all we need to change to that, and then we're good?
Yes, we need to make sure that it's for
It's
both of them.
both 1 and 2. Okay, I did follow that.
Okay, so for me to understand, this is for the friendly amendment that the chair added,
That's for number 3.
or this is for 3? I'm asking you, Brett.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it would just be making sure that we have that condition as a variance as well as the condition that there would, however we want to word it, that the only, utilities to be allowed with electricity or something like to that.
Well,
effect.
if I may, I put something and just scratching it as you were saying it, sir. The structure, I just put the structure to the side of the principal structure shall have no plumbing, only electrical, and cannot be used as a dwelling unit.
I like the way you said that.
I do too.
Yeah, thank you.
Straight to the point.
Okay. So, and that can be, that could be friendly amendment number 4. And then number 3, we need to just add the ampersand between 1 and 2. And then that's okay, correct? 2.7.2A1 and 2.
Actually need a new condition because that is for the 2 storage sheds that are in the back.
In the back, yes.
Okay,
So he's saying a new condition for this particular,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
So tell me again then what 1 and 2 are. So I just understand how they're relating to our current structure we're more talking about.
Correct. And I do apologize. So 1 and 2. So 2.7.2A1 is that no accessory structure shall be located closer than 5 feet to any side or rear property line. And number 2 is that they can't be closer than 5 feet to each other. So the 2 short storage sheds that are in the back that are currently within the 5 feet and too close to each other, they're going to move those to comply with those 2.
Mm-hmm.
So they no longer need a variance. We need the variance for the storage shed that we're talking about to be within the 5-foot side property line, but also to be within 5 feet of another structure. So those 2 variances would apply only to that storage shed.
I am hearing you.
That, along with the requirement that it
Because
cannot
we're
be-
within 5 feet of the carport,
Right,
and we're within 5 feet of the sideline, we're 3 feet from that.
right. Now, they still have to deal with building codes and how they
Okay.
handle that permitted, but
Okay.
I pulled it up if you just want to look at it.
Oh, thank you. And so with my, I believe we had motion and second there. Are y'all okay with those friendly amendments?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Smith,
Just one thing, you said no plumbing, and no electrical. Can we delete the no electrical?
no, electrical is allowed.
Okay.
Yeah, electrical is allowed.
Only
Yeah.
electrical.
Only electrical.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, very good. Any
Well,
other comments? Go ahead.
The only thing that I'm struggling with on this is, well, aren't we also approving the location of this, which is not where it's supposed to be, in the rear yard? I mean,
Actually, and just to clarify that, Ms. Baker, what that requirement, it's not required to be in the rear yard, it can't be in the front yard, so it can't be,
so it can be in the side yard like that?
yes.
Okay.
All right, any other thoughts before we vote? All right, hearing none, Mr. Ragsdale, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, and let the record show that Ms. Bostic has joined us, thank you. Ms. Bostic?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well, let me just go to Mr. Bruce,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook? Yes. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Bostic?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Raymond?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Mr. Smith. Mr. Ragsdale, will you call our next case, please?
Number 5, that is BOA 22-169, 629 East Street.
All right, is the applicant present? All right, and I have some opposition here, so let's get a staff report real quick on this one, if you don't mind, Mr. Thomas.
All right, yeah, good afternoon, Seth Thomas with the Memphis Shelby County Office of Planning and Development. This case is a use variance from section 2.5.2 to allow a tow yard with inoperable vehicles to operate in the EMP or employment zoning district. It's a basically a 4-acre lot on East Street. Here's an aerial, kind of at the corner of East Street. Georgia Avenue is the principal structure on the lot. This is the zoning that surrounds the site. Basically, it's in an all EMP zoning district with some spattering of variances and plan developments that surround it. And that's sort of reflected in the land use category map. As you can see here, the majority of the land surrounding the lot is either industrial or commercial. Here are some site photos. This is a view of the subject property from East Street facing west. This is a view of the subject property from the corner of East Street and East Georgia Avenue facing northwest. This is a view of cars stored by the business within a railroad right-of-way facing west. Here's a view of the subject property's principal structure. And here's a view of an operable car stored within the public right-of-way. This is the site plan and survey that was provided by the applicant, although that's not necessarily the meat of this case in particular. In conclusion, the applicant is seeking use variance for a tow yard with inoperable vehicles within the EMP zoning district. Although this property was opened legally as a towing service in 2014, in staff's opinion, the site's principal use has shifted into kind of a junkyard or an impound lot, so to speak. The business is storing inoperable vehicles on the sidewalk and within a railroad easement and on the public right-of-way, which isn't necessarily a code issue so much as it's not legal, outside of the zoning code. And staff believes that the granting of this variance will cause substantial detriment to the public good and impair the intent and purpose of the adopted plan. So really, the basis of this recommendation of rejection kind of surfaces or surrounded by the fact that, because the site was opened legally, but was shifted into an illegal use, this does not qualify as an undue hardship, as this is a deliberate act of the property owner. And as such, we are recommending rejection, and that it will expire, in 5 months from now, which gives the man who owns the business an opportunity to move those vehicles off the site and sort of clean it up. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
So let me ask, so he could use this as a tow yard where he was towing cars that, parking, whatever reasons, they get towed places and store them there. It's the inoperable vehicles that become a junkyard that's the issue?
That's correct. So, it's kind of a tough line because a lot of times tow yards do, to a certain extent, for a certain period of time, store inoperable vehicles. For example, if we, sort of go to the aerial, there's a police station that's basically directly east of the property, and this towing yard has an agreement with the city, and they tow. The majority of the cars that are towed in the public right-of-way, inside of the site, on the sidewalk, have an MPD case number. They're part of an accident. They get an incident number, and they get a call from the police department to, hey, we had an accident. We'd like these vehicles towed to a site where you can store them. And then it more or less becomes the issue of the insurance companies to go to that car, to make a determination on what the damages are, and to move them to a site that the insurance agency is, supporting or has a contract with. I think, there was a world in which if the property owner kept this kind of thing going within the bounds of his property, that this wouldn't have come to light, but it's sort of, you can see through the zoning atlas that really between the years of 2018 and now, there were more and more cars being stowed in the abandoned railroad right-of-way and on the street, which led to people getting upset. They got a citation from code enforcement. And, that's where it sits right now. It's sort of, I agree sort of probably with what the applicant will say is that a lot of tow yards do this. They store inoperable vehicles. They're not there indefinitely. But even if you look at the Sidwell maps, there are vehicles that have been stored on that site for years that never moved and didn't have an incident number. They were just being used as junkyard storage, and there's multiple Connex boxes and other things that are within the right-of-way that don't even have anything to do with the vehicle. That's just industrial storage, which is not allowed in the EMP zoning district. So that's sort of where this case sits right now. It was in environmental court on Monday, and Judge Dandridge more or less defers to the action of the board before he makes any sort of ruling. And so I don't believe it's next Monday, but the Monday after, once he realizes what the ruling is here, he'll make some sort of determination based off of the code violations that are taking place on this property.
Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Baker?
You may have already answered this, but did you go to that, was it 2018 when this was approved? Did you go to that approval and look at all the conditions and everything? And
this site was never, it was granted a certificate of occupancy back in 2014. It opened legally as he filed the certificate of occupancy as a tow yard, which at the time and still is legal use by right in the EMP zoning district. So they never received any zoning entitlement or conditions as they opened legally, and honestly for some time after that C of O was granted, they did operate legally as a general tow yard, and to some extent they still are operating as a tow yard. Really a lot of the issues that stem from this site are the storage in the public right-of-way and whatnot.
Well, I thought I saw in the staff report, and there's a lot of talk about spacing requirements and everything from residential and so on. And are there spacing requirements for this use?
So they are required to be shielded or a certain amount of footage away from single-family zoning, but this is surrounded by light industrial zoning, and so those don't necessarily.
So they don't violate any of those?
No, they do not.
Probably not a hard and fast rule. At what point does it become junkyard as opposed to storage?
that's sort of the thing, is the code doesn't necessarily speak to that hard and fast rule, which is kind of where this situation arises. Is, like I said, there are a bunch of tow yards within Memphis and Shelby County that, depending on how many accidents there are in the month, are operating either legally or illegally because, to a certain extent, depending on when insurance companies come to pick up these vehicles, cars could sit for months at a time, and that sort of is a violation. I want to say it's something like for junkyards. I think the code maybe makes something of like 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know. Maybe Brecken, he's got the UDC on him.
Well, it actually, yeah, so for a tow yard, you can have a tow yard, but an impound lot is with inoperable vehicles, so any inoperable vehicles are not allowed in EMP. And so there are, and as Mr. Thomas has stated, through the aerial imagery, some of these cars have been there for.
And has that particular thing of not allowing those inoperable vehicles in EMP, has that changed since 2014?
No.
Okay.
So in 2014, there was a Unified Development Code change. It was the ZTA that changed that. So, and I was kind of fuzzy on the dating between when they got their C of O, but either way, this C of O was not filed to be an impound lot. The COA was filed to be a towing service. And the expansion of the site over the years, even if they did have a grandfather, has taken away their ability to claim a grandfather under TCA. So it's sort of irrelevant to the overall ruling, at least from our standpoint.
So I have one other question. I'm looking at this request here, and it says to allow a tow yard with inoperable vehicles to operate in the employment district. So we're not, if we approve this, we'd be approving a tow yard with inoperable vehicles, but if we rejected it, then you could still have a tow yard there, but you just couldn't have inoperable vehicles.
That's correct.
So, okay.
I have a question. I see two addresses, 633 and 629. Are those the two addresses at the same lot, or are we talking about two separate?
Oh, could you repeat that? I couldn't quite hear you.
There are two addresses listed, one 633 East Street and one 629.
633. There might have been a typo somewhere.
Okay.
What part of the staff report is that on?
I'm looking at, there was a insert from, of course, Memphis Medical, but then insert.
Oh, I think maybe they just got the address wrong, would be my guess, in their letter of opposition.
Okay. Well, on Lewis Thomason, they have both 629 and 633. So
I guess I'm not necessarily familiar with
that's on page 28 of the staff report.
Yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily sure what the 33 is. I mean, maybe they do have two addresses, but at least from our standpoint, as far as like a tax purpose and with the Shelby County zoning atlas, it's the 629 is the address. It's always been one parcel, but you could technically have two addresses on one parcel.
Okay. Thank you. I was just wanting clarity.
Any other questions of staff? All right, Mr. Bray, do you want to come speak to us a little bit? If you'll give your name and address for the record.
David Bray with Bray Firm, 2950 States Plaza North. So to start with, we have a report.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, David.
So we have a request in for you guys for a hold. Mr. Dybel could not be here today, and his attorney had a death in the family over the weekend, and he could not be here today. And a lot of this is going to get into what Mr. Thomas tried to explain, and I don't know that I can do any better with it, on what's an inoperable vehicle. They do tow for City of Memphis, so they tow from accident scenes. It's an insurance issue on how fast the insurance company gets there to pick up, and that is a part of this. Now, notwithstanding that, the vehicles in the public right of way, we've discussed this, the vehicles in the abandoned railroad right of way, they've got to get those moved and get those off of there. And I know there's opposition signed up to speak, and I certainly don't want to take away their opportunity to speak, but we would like to defer this for 30 days so that both the applicant and his attorney can be here to sort of explain some of the dynamics of what's going on. And you've seen some of this on the news. This is not just their lot with difficulty in getting the vehicles off of it.
Okay, well, let's let you reserve all your time.
Okay.
Let's talk to the opposition.
Okay.
So, understood.
Thank you.
So I have cards here for 3 people. Would someone like to volunteer to come first? I got Miss Bearden, Mr. Byrd, and a Jamie Gibbler.
Yes, Mr. Rainey, my name is Jamie Gibbard. Mr. Byrd is my client, and so he's going to come up with me. I'll speak
Okay.
on his behalf. He'll follow up.
Yeah, why don't you just come on up? And I'll swear y'all in. Now, are you his attorney or just representation?
Yes, I am Chris Byrd's, his company's attorney, Dillard.
Okay, perfect. So I don't have to swear you in. I need to swear them in, though.
Ms. Bearden actually has to go, so let's let her go ahead.
Okay.
Go first.
All right, if you'll say your name and address for the record.
Sure. Kim Bearden, 7201 Atterbury Circle West.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and let me, before y'all start, we usually like to grant holds when somebody's trying to figure something out. So the question I would like answered most is, they're saying they know they have to clean stuff up and their attorney wants to come back and talk about what they need to do. Would y'all be amenable to that? I know y'all have already come down once, but we like to try to get everybody together to figure it out.
I would be open to hearing about a cleanup plan, yes.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is save everybody the time. If we can go to the hold, we can do it then, if that's okay with your client as well, Ms. Gibbler.
I can't speak for
Yeah, I'm looking at her.
anybody.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Rainey, my client's okay with going ahead.
Okay, then with y'all's permission, instead of going on and on today, let's come back next month and get completely into it. Hopefully we get answers about what's gonna be done at the property and all that, and then we can get the best solution is what we'd like to do.
That's going to, just to be clear, that's going to stay the decision in environmental court, correct?
Probably.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. With your permission, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Would somebody on the board move for a hold for 30 days?
So move.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of hold signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you all, and we'll see you all next month. All right, Mr. Ragsdale, will you call our next case?
BOA 22-171, 62 Angela Street.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Yeah. Yes, okay. And is there any opposition? I got something. Okay, right there. Okay. If y'all can hang out wherever you want to, because we're going to let him give us a staff report first, and then we'll call you down. Mr. Thomas, will you give us a staff report, please?
Yep, good afternoon again. This is a variance request. I'm gonna have to do some breathers here. From subsection 2.7.1E to allow an accessory structure that's not compatible with the architectural character of the principal structure. Paragraph 2.7.2A2 to allow an accessory structure closer than 5 feet from the principal structure. Paragraph 2.7.2A3 to allow an encroachment into the required front yard setback. Paragraph 2.7.2A4 to allow an accessory structure to be located in the front yard. Section 2.7.10A to allow boat storage in the front yard, and item 2.4.2C1D to allow a front yard parking pad. It's about a 0.1 2-acre lot, and it's located in the RU3 zoning district. So here's an aerial of the site, kind of located directly across from Home Depot on the east side of Angela Street. The zoning of the surrounding property are at least on the east side of Angeles, are RU3, and then to the west is CMU3, where I believe it's the Save-A-Lot and the Home Depot are located. So, and that's sort of reflected in the land uses with multifamily just due east, and single family and multifamily up and down the street, with commercial to the west. So here are some site photos of the property and the structure that this sort of meeting is about. And here are some more site photos. Some of these were taken by the Office of Construction Code Enforcement, and some were taken by me as I drive down Poplar, so it was easy for me to kind of scoot on over here and take some site photos. And this is the view of the subject property before the building of the structure in question here. This is the site plan that was sort of provided by the applicant. And so they were cited by code enforcement, and that's why they're filling out this variance request. So the applicant is seeking relief from a myriad of sections within the Unified Development Code, mostly surrounding the front yard setback and the placement of an accessory structure for vehicle storage. In staff's opinion, this front yard parking pad is serving primarily as vehicle storage, whether it be boats, Sea-Doos, secondary cars, and is not compatible with the surrounding property uses. Although the property is across from a commercial use, the east side of Angela Street is single-family residential with a smattering of multifamily. We believe that granting this variance will cause a detriment to the public good, and the neighbor that is directly north of the property did file a letter of opposition. He's not super excited about what was done to the property, and staff feels that there really is no hardship or practical difficulty presented by the applicant to justify approving the variance. So we're recommending rejection, and it's basically the same sort of thing where you get a 5-month period to, find a new place to store those vehicles and kind of go from there. So I'm open for any questions.
Thomas, do you mind shifting back to the file photo, like prior to the work being done? Yeah. Is there a back wall on the carport?
I believe I believe it's like a sort of wrought iron gate.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Thomas?
Well, excuse my ignorance, but before that carport was built, was a permit required for that? And if so, did they get one? Did they go through the right procedures before building that?
I don't believe they did. I think that's why the citation was issued in the first place. And I guess to a certain extent, it's some of those sort of exist in to the general public anyway. It's kind of a purgatory in terms of it's not necessarily a structure in terms of a building. It's more or less kind of like an awning sort of thing for like a graduation party. That's what I sort of called it. And so sometimes there are people that don't necessarily think they have to file for a building permit for that, since it's not the traditional structure of like a detached garage that would certainly prompt that kind of thing. Right. I don't believe they did.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Is this carport structure, it's taller than the house, right? The main dwelling?
I believe so.
Okay.
Or if it's not, it's pretty darn close. Okay. I don't think we even put that in our, it's kind of even with it, I guess. Maybe from the peak of the roof a little bit lower.
I got you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we've had a fair number of these kinds of structures in the front yard in the last few months. And I'm wondering if it would help if the businesses or the contractors or whoever is engaged in this business of selling and building these for people, if they could be educated with respect to some of the rules and that you got to get a permit and all that?
That's certainly an issue that we come up with, where a lot of these, whether they're in the rear yard, the side yard, the front yard, whether it's Home Depot or Tough Shed or what have you, they say, oh, no, you absolutely do not need a permit. And so really, in some respects, it's the contractors, the people that are hired to do the work, that tell these people that have hired them that they don't need one. And then they're, surprised when they get a stop work order or something like that. And I think, we try to tell, when people do call and have questions about it, we try to let them know, hey, if this is an accessory structure, you really do need a building permit. Do not listen to what your contractor says. But there's only, since a lot of it is maybe freelance or whatever, it's really hard to kind of pin down who exactly is disseminating that false information. So we try our best, I guess, would be my answer.
One more question. I can't tell from our site plan that we were given. How wide is it? Is it 3 cars wide?
So here, let me see if I can get
I can't tell if you can fit something beside, between the white car and the front of the house or not.
I mean, it basically goes more or less from the front porch all the way to the sidewalk. It would be a pretty tight squeeze, but you could probably get 3 cars. I think in this photo that's on the right, there's a boat and then 2 vehicles. So boat maybe being a little skinnier than a car.
Any other questions? Look up something real quick.
And I guess, I suppose I'll make a statement that's sort of quasi-personal. So, we understand that the applicant does have a disability and does use a wheelchair. And I think that there is a way that we could amicably come to a way to get some sort of covering or awning to protect the front door of this house without also having it sort of more serve as vehicle storage, which is really the issue that staff has and I have with this, is that, regardless of the situation of the applicant, the principal use, from our opinion, from the pictures that we've seen from code enforcement and from my visits to the site, that it's being used more for storage than it's being used for an accessibility. And so that's, we're not disregarding the accessibility aspect of the application, but merely trying to find a middle ground in this particular regard.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a question. I noticed there is a carport built onto the house on the side, it looks like.
Yeah, so that's sort of another reasoning for the rejection, is the house does have an existing porte-cochere.
Right, and I was going to ask about that.
This is sort of an accessory to that existing awning over, I guess, the side yard entrance. But, I suppose the front door also is maybe the issue and why the applicant wanted, an awning above the front entrance to their property.
Do you know if there's a door on the side where that carport is already?
I would believe there is. I didn't actually, step onto the property and look around. I would assume there is, but I'll leave that open to the applicant's answer.
And one last question. Is it possible to have something similar in the backyard versus the front yard?
So really the issue with a lot of these properties that are on this side of Angeles Street is they're very, they don't go very far back. And so I'm not necessarily sure, and I'm assuming, and I'll let the applicant speak to this, but I don't know if they would have the amount of room back there to store those types of vehicles, which is probably one of the reasons that they built the front yard sort of parking pad awning in the scale that they did. I don't know if there's a turning radius in the same way maybe there would be on an R6 lot, for example. Since this is RU3, the lot sizes are significantly smaller than what we would see in the Midtown area in general.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if the applicant will come forward and we'll swear y'all in. And you can start by giving your name and address for the record.
I'm gonna need to speak for her a little bit. Sure. She has speech impairment.
Not a problem.
My name's Alan Kabisky. Let me stand back a little bit. I'm loud. I'm her new husband.
Okay.
And what else do you need?
Go ahead and state her name and then give me y'all's address.
This is Suzanne Colsey Kabisky, and We live at 62 Angliss Street.
Okay, and then do y'all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, I heard you. Thank you.
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
I'm not sure where to begin. I got, she has a statement she'd like to say. I'm gonna try to read this to you.
Sure.
I've been living on Angeles since 2001. I had my house built there because it was close to my work at the time, the Living Memphis Center for Independent Living. Since my first husband passed away in 2017, and I was lucky enough to find real love for the first time in my life, and I got the money to make my yard more accessible for me in order to live my life to the fullest with the time I got left. We stopped moving things around when we got notice on the door, and we're planning to putting a hoist up in order to get me in my 2 cars. Also, my van will be under it too. I have been making this city more accessible for all people with disabilities, from our public schools to curb cuts. I've got there's 2 more houses on our street that have concrete all the way out to the curb. And this one's down a little further. We don't believe we're doing anything else that anybody was done. There's other areas in town that they have concrete out to the curb, to the sidewalk. We're concrete outside, and you know, there's other places in town where they have a boat stored at their house. I mean, like I said, we're not doing anything else that we're doing. And the particular boat that I got is a boat that we're able to get her, specifically, we're able to get her in because it's low enough to the ground. I can get a hoist to get it up and get her in it. So all she wants to do is be able to live free and feel normal like anybody else, like each one of you. We've seen plenty of places that got carports that they're, you know, closer than 5 foot to the house. We've got them like that. I've seen them like this in front of the house, right down at the end of Poplar and Angliss. I mean, we got a house with multiple cars parking there also. And one of the complaints is the gentleman that lives beside her that owns the property, and we've had that. She's been there for 22-something years, way longer than he's on that property over there. But thing of it is, what kind of really upsets me a little bit, he allows his tenants to park in the grass on his yard, which I know is not right because I live in Frazier and we had a deal about that prior to that. And the code enforcement said, well, you can park in your front yard as long as you got concrete down. I called them, asked, and I said, well, do I need a permit to lay concrete? They said, no, you don't need concrete for a driveway. And judging based by that is the only reason why we went and put concrete out there. If the concrete coming out has more than one purpose to it. She's in a wheelchair. It ain't good. She rolls around in the yard, she gets stuck. She'll be out there for 8-9 hours before somebody comes to rescue her or something. She has to be on concrete, roll around in her chair. She's only try to make improvements to do better for her. And what part of the idea was, two of the vehicles that she owns, we wanted, with the carport, we were intending on putting a hoist up on the middle of it so we could raise her up and get her in two of the vehicles that she owns. She owns a Corvette and she owns a little dune buggy. And she just, like I said, she just wants to be able to enjoy her life like anybody else and feel free and independent. And occasionally, for what brief moment God gives her to be in a vehicle, for her to feel normal, like any other person. But I just think it's ironic that the person that's complaining about it lets his tenants park in the yard without concrete. And we're just trying to do right. As far as the structure and the height of the structure, I did that because we got a camera in the front yard. It's not a safe area of town. Everybody thinks it's just the best. Well, it's not. It's part of the city of Memphis. And Memphis is not safe, and we all know that. She always has to have somebody with you don't? Oh, she doesn't always have somebody with her. That's why we got, the camera stuff out there. And it's just, I don't know. It's, we like they stated, we have Home Depot across the street. And I mean, it's a living hell over there, to be honest. They're over there unloading trucks and stuff in the middle of the night, constantly 2 o'clock in the morning. And the little forklifts are out there going beep, 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 doing their little backup thing and all that, because I know they have to have safety things with, zoning commercial. I understand that, but it's not extremely pleasant being, having them across the street. I mean, that's practically, industrial over there. And I feel like we're not doing anything as anybody else normally does. I didn't intentionally make the building bigger the main purpose was that we got it a little bit higher so we didn't have to move our video camera, so for the security purposes. I wasn't aware of any kind of law that individuals could only own a certain amount of vehicles, anything like that. She owns 3, I own 3. I don't know.
Did you build it yourself, or did you order it?
No, we had a company. We bought it from a place down on State Line Road. It was like an antique shop, and they was like an agent for a company called Max Steel out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And we set it up with them to build the carport, come down, whatever. They built it, and they never said anything to us about needing a permit and put it up. I thought since it wouldn't, we figured since it wasn't attached to the house, we didn't realize we needed a permit.
Sure.
We could have sized it a little different if we'd have known prior to that, but we didn't. But like I said, it's like 10 foot high. We paid just a little bit extra, get just a hair higher than the edge over there, so our camera can see through it up under the carport, up under. We got there's trees out there. In the summertime they drop all the sap and stuff all over the cars. It just ruins the paint on vehicles and stuff. And we're just trying to have something nice. We're not extremely rich. Most of my vehicles, all the vehicles that we own, they're old. They're not. They're antiques. They're not. The only new vehicles we got is her van and my Volkswagen Passat, which.
We got a question.
But they're. She says she don't want to be in her wheelchair all the time when she goes right around when we go places in town.
I have a question. Do you intend to put some type of siding on those metal poles, or are you going to leave it open?
Well, we was going to leave it like that. We can put something on the side, bring it down, lower it, hide that, or whatever. We didn't. We didn't really take that into consideration. I don't know. We didn't know if we really needed that or not.
I got a question for staff.
But as far as equipment, we're not intending on adding anything to it.
Sure.
I mean, it's like it is all we wanted. It's just the way it is. The only other thing we was wanting to do was put a hoist in there so we can get her in and out of 2 different vehicles that she owns.
Well, that's the 10 minutes. Are there any questions for the applicant? Not right now. Okay, so you'll get rebuttal time. Mr. Thomas, is it possible, like, I know somebody told them they could just put concrete in the front yard. We're not talking about the top yet. Can you just concrete a yard if you want to? Is that allowed?
So that's kind of one of the weird things where I don't believe the Unified Development Code, and they've got it over there, so they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the Unified Development Code has anything about the inability or ability to concrete an entire front yard. The issue comes with parking in the front of the yard. So, I mean, hypothetically, if you wanted to concrete your whole front yard, you could do that. But if you started parking cars in the front of it, you know, not in front of the front facade of the property, then you're in a violation of the zoning code. So it's kind of one of those weird things that leads to a lot of problems. We've had similar things. The property from Cafe Eclectic, I believe, that was a landmarks variance request, kind of the same deal where the issue wasn't the paving, but it was the parking, you know, so that's sort of where that lies. Maybe that's a potential upcoming, maybe 2024 ZTA, who knows?
Yeah, okay.
What about because it's got the covering over it, is that what makes it an accessory structure? I mean, if they remove the covering and leave the concrete, then don't you get out of some of these variances that they're asking about?
You would, because then it would really be like the ability or inability to park in the front yard, which is a variance that we've granted previously, and I think maybe this has certainly more of an undue hardship than the structure itself. But I think, you know, at least from reading the applicant's statements, that the roof is part of the, you know, the reasoning as to why. And so I think it would be hard to sort of make a, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I'm only staff, not the board, so that's for y'all to decide.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Ms. Bostic.
You mentioned that there may be some workaround that may be available for them to, I guess, keep some part or portion of the covering.
Well, I think, you know, staff, you know, at least for me as the person that was assigned the case, I think, shoot, I don't know what's going on here, that one of the issues is really the totality of the front yard is being taken up by this structure. And so from a, you know, an accessibility standpoint and a chairlift standpoint, maybe it would be, you know, whether we hold it for a month or come up with some sort of condition to maybe reduce the size of the structure so that it maybe has, you know, room for maybe 2 cars as opposed to taking up the whole thing. But like I said, I think, you know, at least from what the applicant stated and what's in the application, that the roof is sort of part of it. And I would sort of, you know, it's, you know, you can't really chop that thing with a Sawzall and you know, make it smaller as it currently exists.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if I could get Mr. Lockwood. If you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Steve Lockwood. I live at 2043 Nelson Ave, Memphis.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I own the rental house just to the north of this. I don't know if I'm the landlord that was referred to. I've never seen my tenants park in the yard there, we'll say. I've been somewhat involved in redevelopment efforts of that street and the adjoining Madison Avenue area. That's an area that's sort of, no, it is under redevelopment. There are new houses either just having been built or being built or proposed on either side of our houses, you know, 8 blocks north, 8 houses north and 5 houses south and the like. It's an area that has been stressed over time and is rebounding. I was really sorry to see the structure go up. I didn't know about it till my tenants notified me about it. I'm really sorry that the Colseys didn't know they had to have a permit because it feels really inappropriate for the neighborhood and it's obtrusive, and frankly, I can't think of any other structure really anywhere around that looks like this. As you know, the structure is all the way to the sidewalk, and the sidewalk doesn't even have a grass median strip, so it's all the way to the street. And there are, I've not always counted how many vehicles are there, but there's a lot of vehicles. It seems, certainly everyone wants to have access for Ms. Colsey to be able to come and go in vehicles, but 6 vehicles, I think, is over code for a small house like this. And I don't know, you all would know more about that than me. But so while it's unfortunate that it's already built, I think it's inappropriate and it hurts the street that's in the process of redevelopment. So I think that's about it. Thanks. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Lockwood?
I have a question. Mr. Lockwood, how deep is that lot? We were trying to figure out how much room they had in the back.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to the backyard of my house, which is, it's just directly north. I own 70. I don't know if you're going to be able to spot it. The backyards are not big, but there are backyards. I don't know about their backyard. Obviously, I've never been in it. Is it as big as the front yard? It's probably about the same. Both front and back are fairly small. It's probably I wish I'd thought about it, but and you all could probably look it up, but it's probably 50 by 80 lot or something like that. I'm not sure. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Lockwood? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else here in opposition to this case? Okay, the applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I tried my best.
She told me her lot is actually like 3 lots, is when she bought her property, so it's a little bit bigger than some of the other ones. The distance in the back, I'm guessing from where the end of the back carport is to maybe the fence is maybe close to 15, 20 feet, somewhere in there. I'm not sure.
I'm looking at a map right now.
It's probably, less than, half from here to y'all back there, but she's got a storage shed back there, and there's no way I don't know how to, there's a brick wall in that back part up on the carport, and I don't know how there would be any way to get back there. There's a little bitty a little manhole side gate on the side of it.
There's a storage shed back there too, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at the overhead
back there.
Yeah, just so what I'm seeing just on my measurement on the tax map, and that could be off, is the front yard is about 28 to 30 from the sidewalk to the house, and the backyard's 20 to 25 from that. But just so y'all know.
I think the back is a little bit smaller than the
back
front.
is definitely smaller than the front.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
The size of the awning that we got was, best of my knowledge, is 30 by 26. That's what they told
30 deep, 26 wide?
30 wide, 26
Okay, that
long.
makes sense. Any other questions for the applicant? I'll make a comment. I don't really like this case very much. I don't like having to decide this, to be honest with you.
Do what now?
I don't like having to decide this because I understand the need that y'all have for it. And I know you had pictures of all these different things. And you can find houses that have the concrete. You can find houses that they don't have all of them to this extent. It's just huge, man. It's just, the entire yard is covered up with an awning, and there's just no yard like that I know of has that. But I do feel for you. I don't want you to.
Some things have to be different and made special for her because she can't live, she can't live life like a normal individual.
Yeah.
We were planning on moving stuff around and setting it up like she wanted to, but we didn't do anything because they told us stop doing everything, whatever. So we just stopped. We just left everything like it was.
Yeah.
She had, at the house, she has to have a horse to go from the bed to the bathroom, and I mean, she uses a horse daily, every day. She don't get up a day and not have to use a horse to get her in and out of her wheelchair somewhere, because she can't move, she has cerebral palsy. And we almost feel like it's a little bit of almost close, get on the fine line close of a discrimination issue because she's in a wheelchair and her not being able to have what she wants. But we really didn't we weren't trying to step on toes by doing things wrong. It's more so for the simple fact that we didn't know.
Sure.
I mean, all she wants to do is live in her house and just be normal like everybody else.
So how open would you be to removing the awning or reducing the size of it? Is that something that's, that you would consider?
We can remove the awning. It'll be a $14,000 loss for her. We're under contract to pay that. So we can take the awning out of there. We can scrap it, throw it in the 10-yard, whatever. But that's going to force her to pay 409 months for nothing, for 35 months. Yeah. Somewhere like $14,000 she's going to lose. And that's not, I mean, she already has to hire people to come over. As far as vehicles go, sometimes there's always another vehicle over there because she has to hire people to come over and help her in times when I'm not there and when I go to work. Sometimes she's there by herself, sometimes she's not. Like I said, it's kind of based on things that she needs.
Question for you. Do you still use the on-street parking in addition to that front yard parking?
At the present time, no. We can, but like I said, this is the city of Memphis. Not long after I moved in, one of the neighbors down the street was telling me, "Oh yeah, man, they're out here cutting the Cadillac converters off the cars out here in the street." Well, we just wanted our things secured enough. We have cameras to be close enough we can see somebody doing something, because like I said, Memphis is not, you can't nobody deny Memphis is a high crime town. We're just trying to make things safe for, her, us, and whatever, as far as, trying not to park on the street. I won't say that, it's an impossibility that we won't. I can. I could put, park something that's not quite as, lower in value out there, but in fact, you could line up all their cars up and down the street, but that's to me that looks just as bad. But I don't know what to say to that.
Would you be amenable to talking with the company that produced this structure to see if there's any way they can help shrink it and come back with, I just don't think there's any way I can vote to have this entire yard covered. I just can't get there with what I'm allowed to do under the zoning code. And so they may say we can't do anything, but maybe they can do something and make it 2.5 cars wide. It's 3 cars wide. You now have, I understand your situation, but you have covering in your front yard, including the carport.
Well, that means we'd have to buy another carport.
Well, they may be able to use, maybe they can use that one.
2 carports to get down to, the size of 2 cars.
I don't think there's any way we're ever going to be able to prove you've been able to cover all 6 of those vehicles in the front of the front yard. And so what I would suggest you do is go back to that company and talk to them. Hey, this isn't working. My city's come and done this. Can you help us figure something out that's less and bring that plan back to us? Don't do anything. Bring the plan back. And maybe we can find some middle ground. But I just don't, for me at least, that's not going to be able to work. It's too much.
Well, like, the only thing I can do is call them, but I don't know that I can get, we don't know that we can get
Yeah,
a refund or swap it
let's-
out for a different or smaller size. I don't know. And I'm not sure if they can, how that would work to reduce the size of that one, because the pieces are made
Sure, no,
specifically for that.
I would love for you to take some time to ask them to see what you can do. And you might come back and say, oh, it's all this, and then that's something that we know now. But it's just, and maybe if we know there's just nothing we can do, might sway. I still don't think I could ever vote for that. That's just me personally talking, based on what I think I'm allowed to do by code is what I'm responsible for here. But you may be able to get something so we have all the information possible and sway some members that way.
Yeah, and when you talk to them, maybe this helps. Just, if they had kind of thought about these issues beforehand, then maybe you could have avoided being in this situation.
Yeah, they never really said anything. They were like, okay, let's get a date, let's get it out there. They never said anything about me saying, well, we think you might need some permits. Do you have permits? Should you check on it? And anything like that prior to it, they never said anything.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind.
Part of the problem is they're in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Could be, yeah.
And it took them 2 or 3 months just to even come down there and put it up because they're so far away, because they're not a local business.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, when we went down there, I was thinking it wasn't going to be a problem with somebody being a local, because the guy was a dealer for them.
Sure.
At that antique place.
But he was even down in Mississippi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't have the same, different code. I mean, I get it. I mean, I understand. You're not the first person that had come in and said, well, we didn't know we needed a permit. And I get it. You didn't put any electrical in, you didn't do anything like that. I think I'd like for you to go back and talk to them and see if there's anything they can do, anything y'all can find to make it a smaller footprint. Anything to disconnect it from the street would be helpful. Now, don't do any of those things. I don't want you spending any real money on doing anything without talking to us about it, but at least give us some options is what I'd suggest you do. Okay.
And if I could say,
Yeah.
if there's any way you could put it in the rear yard, that would make all the difference to me, if you could get it in the rear yard.
Look at the options. You might just say, we looked at it, there's no way.
There'd only be room to put probably one car back there and just pull straight in, that's it, because there's not enough room to turn around.
Yeah.
Back there like that.
Yeah, just let us know. Just see, explore anything you can. So what I'm going to do.
We was possibly thinking about in the future is we was going to try to do it the right way. We just wanted to build a 2-story shed in the backyard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we was going to
get permits.
Do the permit, go do the right. I mean,
yeah.
Kind of lesson learned kind of deal,
Yeah.
I drive a truck. I'm not familiar with a lot of building code stuff, so.
Oh, understood. Most citizens are not, so that's par for the course. So I'm going to ask if we can get a motion for a hold on this case until next month.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, is there any discussion on the hold? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the motion for the hold passes, and we'll hopefully see y'all in February.
Or y'all gonna mail us a date or something to be that back down here? Or am I gonna have-
You can get with Seth. He knows the exact date. Yeah, he'll know that.
Okay.
Are there any announcements, or that's all our cases, correct? No announcements? All right, this meeting's hereby adjourned.